Yo, what up, One Love? It's your boy, Jesse. Hey guys, welcome back to another video on Alex's WRC build. In this vid, we're gonna get the quarter panels molded on. The car gets sent out for a roll cage. We get it all primed, we get the interior all painted, and put back together as a car. Here we are now with both sides fitted. I've gone along and made my cut line here. These are drilled out to 3/16 for the clecos, along with my under section there. These will get permanent rivets, along with down here where the molding will sit, we'll get a permanent rivet. Then over to our other side, we have the same thing here. We have our cut line along there. And then all our holes drilled out to 3/16 for the clecos. And again, down the door here, these will be permanent rivets under the molding. So what we're gonna do now is take the panels back off, make our cut. With the quarter panels now all trimmed, our next step here is going to be roughing up the surface where it's gonna mold to the car. So what we're gonna use is some 80 grit sandpaper here. We're gonna do the same on the car everywhere that the panel bond is gonna hit. Back over to the car here, we have our epoxy primer here. This does a really good job of sealing up metal and incredibly durable. What we are gonna do is scuff up everywhere that our panel bond is gonna hit on this. It's fine if we sand through the epoxy because underneath of this, we still have the factory paint. We don't really want to sand down to bare metal for sake of rust. So having this barrier followed by the factory paint underneath does give us a nice substrate to attach to. And since we're going to be bonding our quarter panel to our lip here, we're going to scuff this all up. This guy as well. Then down into this section here, there is no room for a lip. So it's completely flat and our panel sits on it completely flat. So we're gonna end up scuffing up this side here for the bond and then along with all the way down our door sill there. So now I'm gonna go ahead with the prep on the car side along with prepping the panels themselves. With our panels all now scratched up and the fiberglass panels all scratched up as well, we are ready to now clean the surfaces. We're gonna do that with a final wipe, give it a good dry, and then we are ready to break out the panel bond. So we got the guns all loaded here. This is a windshield urethane. I'll show you where I'm gonna use this. And this is the 3M panel bond. We have our panels all prepped, all washed, ready to go. And we got our car all ready to go. Here we are back and all bonded. I really want this quarter panel to be watertight from the outside. I don't want water to get in from anywhere. So we are completely sealed up. The panel bond was used along any of the areas that are gonna get molded. And then along here, along the wheel lip. Where I used the windshield urethane was where I didn't have a lip here, and I thought the panel bond was maybe too brittle for in there. I wanted something with a little bit of flex because I've got fiberglass and just a bit of sheet metal here. So this is where I had the urethane. I did do like a very tall 1/2 inch bead up in there, so it is very solid. Even if I take this clamp off to hold them tight, it actually doesn't move because of how hard the windshield urethane grabs. And over onto the other side, everything is looking good. I didn't have to clamp it. I mean, I didn't have to clamp the other side either. Once I press them together, they just kind of stay there anyway. It's a good idea to keep your back doors on in case you had any sort of minor adjustments that where you just needed your quarter panel absolutely perfect to get your door to close nice. Once the panel bond dries up, I imagine some of these cleco pins will have become sacrificial. What you can do as it's drying is continue to spin the cleco pins. This will keep them free from the panel bond, but you still may end up clogging the pins with panel bond. As you can see on the inside here, they are quite saturated with panel bond, but it is what it is and it happens. I rather the panel be stuck on the car than for me to save these 50-cent cleco pins. All right, we are back the next day here and we are going to attempt to get our cleco pins out. Most of them have probably flooded with panel bond here, but this is to be expected. So they're pretty much junk after that because it won't spread anymore. So you'll pour one out for these guys. Yeah, with a twist and a pop, they do come out all right. So I'm gonna go ahead, get all these guys out. Got all the clecos out there. I just want to show you guys how well the panel bond can grab. So that is like the top gel coat of the fiberglass there. So pulling them out rips it right off. That's fine. Our quarter panel, we did not prep sand it for that reason, to try and get these to grab less when the panel bond got between them and the panel. These ones are all garbage. They have too much panel bond in the teeth. I'm gonna throw those out and just buy a new set. Here we are with the clecos out. It's starting to look like a car. So next step before beginning body filler and or short strand, whatever you're gonna use, I like to do a really nice glob, a nice bead from your bonded panel to your vehicle to kind of fill in that channel. And while it's all wet and while you've just bonded on your panel, this is the best time to do it. So it's all going to become nice and uniform. You would start out with block, DA, maybe a die grinder, and deck this all down, take down any of the texture, and you can begin your molding there. Everything is looking good. All right, in preparation for our filler across here, this has not been sanded yet, so we're gonna rough that up with like a 120 and start to transition the panel bond seam there. I've now got the quarter panel seam all knocked down here. I'm gonna go ahead and mix up some fiber strand, which is kind of like a body filler with a bit of fiberglass in it. The reason I want to do that is my first little skim to get the transition from panel to fill in, rather than use that much body filler with the risk of cracking in the body filler. So first coat, we're gonna go ahead with some fiber strand. Short strand on here, and it is already looking really good. With some rough paper on a block, I'm gonna start to knock this down so we can get the base of our transition. We now have our first bit of the transition starting to make an appearance here. I have both sides tuned up. So you can use a pretty rough grit to start to shape this up. It does help as well using a rough grit for your next layer, which we're gonna get into some body filler. When we do the body filler, we're gonna pull it out further to make this transition more gradual. This is still, for the most part, you can feel it by hand that it drops down a little bit, even though we have this ramp here. Alright, I've now cut down the first layer of filler, and it's really started to smooth out the transition here. Obviously you're going to find your low spots like this, so there's no sense in sanding out these little holes here. You'll end up covering over them with one more coat. Then over to the driver's side. This one turned out really good for one coat, like that's super good. I've put in the taillights to make sure everything is working good there and that my build and stuff like that is okay here. Everything is good in the taillights. Figured I would throw on the bumper as well to check that. So you can see I've got quite a bit of build under there and a little bit less here. So I either take some away from there or add some there. I'm gonna add a little bit just because this curves in faster than I'd like. I'd kind of like to square it off a little bit there, so I'm going to do another coat and tune that up, sand again, and see where we're at. We've now got the second coat all sanded down and it is really starting to shape up. I don't think I'm going to do another coat for sake of build. What I'm going to do is a super light skim coat. Not sure if you guys can see those, but those are little tiny pinholes in the filler. So this is going to help take care of those guys. One more sand and we should be ready for primer. We now have all the pinholes dealt with and our transition is looking and feeling good. We are ready for some primer, so we're going to wheel the car out, blow off all the dust and get it in the booth, and we'll cut back after primer. So here we have a lip for the WRC bumper. This is a Rock Blocks lip. We're gonna line it up, clip it on. There, now it does have little dimples of where you can put screws. We're gonna use those so that we don't leave those little dimples on the bumper. And it does come with hardware, so I'm just gonna go do self-tappers in all of these. Take them out, drill them to the proper hole. That should be it. We do have to cut it a little bit to length. It's about an inch too long on each side, but that's fine. With the car now back from 4-star after the roll cage install, we are about to begin prepping the interior now to also paint it. So that is a lot of complex and unusual sanding. We now have our skirt fitted against our pegs and our peg holes cut. Everything is looking good. So next step here, we are going to trace our pegs. We don't really, I don't know if we want to cut them at a profile to perfectly match the skirt or if we want to cut them straight. That I'm going to momentarily decide on. Aside from that, something that is straightforward is all of our little side attachments here. We are going to drill up to take a M5 riv nut, and then we have these little tiny screws that will go in there. now have our skirt all secured to the car. We've got all our rib nuts in there and our hardware. Everything is looking good. For the moment, I did just cut the pegs flush with the skirt. Rather than following the profile of the skirt, I can always do that later. The reason I left it like this is because I'm curious if it's a safety issue to follow the contour of the skirt, and then, you know, your jack goes in there, and if it's not, you know, a perfectly flat ending hole, is that an issue? So for now, I can't add metal, but I can take it away. So this is just fine for the moment. In the factory location, we have a 10 mil size Allen head in there. Then to hold it in the back, we have one of the rib nuts with an M5 there. Alright everyone, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this. Even though it, for the most part, looks like a car again, this is not the end of what you will see on this car. We're just waiting for some parts to show up, and then we are gonna resume on the finale for it. Alrighty guys, till the next one.